black corpses that didn't go on cruises. They were ripped from their motherland's hip, and 150 years since, who among us knows the name of a single slave ship?
I'm trying to forget images of brown people with bongs, of Cheech and Chong, of hard taco shells from Taco Bell disguised as my culture. I'm tired of gangbangers being the only representation of me on TV. Mass suffering, mass pain. 500 migrants die each year crossing the Sonora deserts, and we don't know a single name? See, I'm thinking of how the media labels my brown brother
illegal,
while my darker tone kinfolk getting branded
criminal. I'm thinking of the killing of Ruben Salazar and Brother Martin.
I'm thinking of Jose Elena Rodriguez and Trayvon Martin.
I'm thinking of Anastasio Rojas and Oscar Grant.
I want to say to the things to their daughters that Anastasio and Oscar can't. Mamacita.
The struggle is real, and what we feel
has gone on for centuries.
From the plantations to the penitentiaries.
From braceros to jornaleros.
Enslaved and encaged.
Throughout history, Black and Latino Americans have faced lynchings, riots, segregation, and police brutality. It isn't difficult to look at standard of living metrics like median income to verify it's still hard to be Black or Latino today.
And I made a good tackle, and I guess I hurt someone on accident, and they told me that I should go back, to Mexico. So I think that hurt.
There were 400 years of legal, and in some cases legalized, systematic racism, and then literally on one day you say we're good. So if I was denied the opportunity to buy this house 50 years ago at the price that it was 50 years ago, then it's not right for you to then turn around and say, well, you can buy the house now for 10 times as much. So we're even. No, we're not even.
Once, I was watching a bit from comedian Ali Sadiq about his experiences in prison.
You Mexican? What Mexican got on boots mean? He say that mean we gonna ride, we gonna stab a couple of black guys up. And I asked, this when you in prison, you ask, I'm like, does the ride happen in here? Like in this cell? Cause me and you just finished eating together. What you mad at me about? I don't know. But this when you learn that you stick with your race in prison, no matter what, you stick with your race. I don't know why I can't have a Mexican friend.
At the time, I thought this was a little strange, but I assumed this was just some odd quirk of this specific prison. However, as I researched this, I found that the story of Black-Latino relations were complex, and that they were neither enemies nor friends. Black-Latino relations have strengthened because they have faced shared oppression, but these relations are damaged when they're placed in harsh conditions that make them deteriorate into tribalism. I understand race is a fuzzy concept, but for this video, Black will be defined as anyone from sub-Saharan Africa, and Latino will be defined as anyone from Ibero-America. This is to avoid any confusion over North Africans or whether French speakers can be Latinos. The first black slaves in British America arrived in 1619 in Jamestown, Virginia. Black Americans were spread throughout the South through slavery and are primarily located there today. In 1819, the Adams-Onis Treaty was signed, ceding Florida to the U.S. from Spain. In 1845, Texas was annexed into the U.S., a republic that had recently won independence from Mexico. In 1848, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was signed after the Mexican-American War and ceded the Mexican Cession. These events created a large population of Latino Americans in the Southwest, where many Latinos still reside today. The presence of Latinos in Florida are largely Cuban immigrants who fled from Fidel Castro's communist regime. We see the first example of Black-Latino relations in the Zoot Suit riots. The Zoot Suit riots occurred in June 1943 in Los Angeles, California. In Los Angeles, there were pachuchos, a subculture of Latinos who dressed in zoot suits. This zoot suit fashion originated in black culture created by the black comedian Ernest Mahan, and then further became popular with other racial minorities, including Mexican Americans. Before the riots, Los Angeles newspapers portrayed pachuchos as criminals, using examples like the Sleepy Lagoon murder by a Hispanic street gang, leading to heightened racial tensions. As it was World War II, there were rationing regulations that prevented clothes that used excessive fabric, such as zoot suits, but some tailors still bootlegged these. While waiting to be deployed in the Pacific Front, American servicemen resided in Los Angeles. On June 3, 1943, a group of sailors complained about being attacked by zoot suiters, and the following day, servicemen started attacking zoot suiters and burning their suits. The majority of victims were Mexican, but black and Filipino zoot suiters were also attacked, and a few servicemen were arrested compared to the hundreds of Mexican Americans arrested. This is an example of blacks and Latinos seeing that both of them were seared with the withering flames of injustice. Due to seeing how Latinos and blacks were discriminated against in similar ways, it's no wonder that they worked together during the Civil Rights era. For example, the Poor People's Campaign was a distinctly multicultural movement to advocate for the rights of poor people. Both black civil rights activists like Martin Luther King and Chicano activists like Rodolfo Gonzalez played a major role in organization. There were also more extreme examples like Fred Hampton's Rainbow Coalition, a socialist civil rights organization. It comprised of members from the Black Panther Party, a communist black power group, the Young Lords, a communist Puerto Rican independence party that used to be a gang, and the Young Patriots organization, a white anti-poverty organization that promoted Southern culture. In general, blacks and Latinos worked together to attain racial equality because they had common goals. An exception to this comes with the 1975 Amendment to the Voting Rights Act of 1965. This amendment seeks to tackle lending discrimination against minority political candidates, moving voting booths so some people can use them, gerrymandering, language discrimination, and general election fraud. This amendment was created to cover other racial minorities besides Black Americans, including Latinos. A black congresswoman, Representative Barbara Jones, contributed heavily to passing this legislation, all of this pointing towards the black-brown unity of the civil rights era. However, Clarence Mitchell, the chief lobbyist for the NAACP, refused to support the amendment, saying if you've got something that's working, you want to be very sure you don't improve it out of existence. In politics, there's the concept of political capital. A group can spend political capital by pushing for some political action, but some supporters may stop supporting the party, meaning you have expended that political capital. In this situation, Mitchell likely thought he didn't have enough credibility or support from his constituents to push for civil rights for a different group. When we condition people to being maltreated, in this case through segregation, they will become more tribal. They may only want to help their tribe because they need to survive. They don't know or understand other groups, so it isn't clear whether helping them benefits them. In contrast, Representative Jordan sees putting Latinos and other racial minorities at equal footing, benefiting her true tribe, humanity. In modern times, prison gangs are largely based on ethnicity,
In prison, no, you stick with your own people.
from Hispanic prison gangs like Nuestra Familia, black ones like the Black Guerrilla Family, and white ones like the Aryan Brotherhood. In California, racial violence in prison was such an issue that the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, or CDC, racially segregated prisoners for the first 60 days to prevent violence between gangs. 2004, this went to the Supreme Court, and in Johnson v. California, they ruled that compromising the inmates' equal protection rights was not necessarily needed for proper prison administration. Even so, the fact racial violence was so bad that the CDC implemented segregation means that there is a serious issue. The disproportionate amount of black and Latino Americans in prison also amplifies this issue. Soledad State Prison, Warden Ben Curry says this about his prison. We traditionally have housed black inmates with black inmates, white inmates with white inmates, Southern Hispanic inmates with Southern Hispanics, Northern Hispanics with Northern Hispanics, and others with others. We've done that as a means to control the violence, and we're fairly successful with it. Now going to the prisoners' experiences in Soledad is John Picarillo, a white separatist murderer. We live by a certain convict code, and when the rules are broken, it's expected to be dealt with in a violent manner. If we all stand strong, and we all stood united, no one else would be able to prey upon us. Meanwhile, this is what black ex-gang member Sam Lewis has to say. The rules are there to keep order, but the wild card is you never know what the next man is going to do. The wild card is like the guy who bumps into you at the chow hall, and you don't say excuse me, and then you get hit in the back of the head with a tray, and a riot kicks off. These deteriorated Black-Latino relations in prison are corroborated in this 2006 article about Black-Latino prison riots. Again, we see the failure of the prison system to create an area conducive to integration. An unidentified inmate said this. You know, when they're around, you know, they're always loud, they're dirty, they don't take showers, and we have rules, you know, and we're above them, and we know we're better than them. Noel Schwerin, who made the documentary on the Soledad State Prison, perfectly summed up the deeper issue. Prison is our institution. It is endorsed by, sustained by, subsidized by our monies, and as much as we like it or not, our values. Our values. We see Black-Latino relations stressed here because the prison environment we have built causes people to regress. We revert to the tribal man who simply wants to advance their tribe at the cost of others. It's only now, with years of development, we can overcome the harmful effect of creating this outgroup that we villainize. Throughout history, we see Black and Latino Americans sharing similar stories of oppression, and many times coming together to face this shared oppression. However, when we place people in poor conditions where their life is on the line, we revert to tribalism. As we increase prosperity for everyone, we reduce racial tension. This includes reform in areas prime for maltreatment, such as prisons.
I'm thinking of capoeira and bomba dancers.
I'm thinking of brown berets alongside Black Panthers.
I'm thinking of Emory Douglas, the Minister of Culture, and Malaquias Montoya and the power of a poster.
I'm thinking of the Freedom Riders and the Undocubus.
I'm thinking this system can't handle us.
I'm thinking how to stop SB 1070 and stop and frisk.
I'm thinking of 67 Sueños and SNCC.
I'm thinking of Harriet Tubman was the first coyote.
I'm thinking of
Scarabeetos
and Monarquitas.
I'm,
I'm thinking of In La Quech, Mayan precept.
I'm feeling Ubuntu, South African concept.
Tú eres mi otro yo.
I am because we are.
You are my other me.
We are because I am.
Black, brown community, let's build unity. Vamos mi gente, súmense, únete. Black, brown community, let's build unity. Vamos mi gente, súmense, únete.